Jim and I are up here with a fabulous view. But have you ever wondered if your focus is a little too narrow? Stay tuned and we'll tell you how to change that.
Welcome everyone. We're excited to share some country wisdom with you.
King Solomon had a thing or two to say about the path to wisdom. In Proverbs 4, he wrote, "Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Keep straight the path of your feet, and all your ways will be sure."
Join us now for country wisdom.
So Jim, I have no objection whatsoever to being out here, lovely campground, lovely fire when the smoke isn't going toward us.
For sure.
And here at the base of the dam. But you haven't quite explained to me why we're here.
Well, because I had an idea, right?
Oh, you always
I
do.
wanted to share it. And that basically, you look at that dam, that thing's over 500 feet tall. Pretty impressive from down here to look at that mass. But what you're missing is, I've had a great experience of flying all over the world a lot. And most of the airliners, cruise about 30,000 feet, 32, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And when you get up that high, it's amazing what you can see. Not only do you see the dam, but you see all the water behind it. You see the mountain ranges that contain that water. And it's pretty incredible. And one day I thought about, what if we look at some of the Bible that way? We go up at 30,000 foot and look down and see what God had to say as we touch the tips, not delve deeply into each valley and each gorge and each crack, but look at it generally.
Getting what they call a bird's eye view.
The bird's eye view, yeah. So I kind of wanted to do that a little bit today in Matthew 5 to 10. Now in Matthew 5, 6, 7, that's all Sermon on the Mount. Okay. When Jesus took everybody up, we usually stop at Matthew 5 and say, well, Sermon on the Mount, but 6 and 7 were also part of all of that. And then 7 and 8, he's done. He goes down the mountain. And then 10, whole nother scenario, which is where I want to focus at the end today.
Okay.
And feel free to chime in a lot of places because there's a lot of stuff that I don't think we think about too often. But we all think about, in chapter 5 of Matthew, blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall see the kingdom of God. Blessed are those that mourn. Blessed are the meek. Right? We all think of those. You love the smoke, right?
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay. Blessed are the peacemakers. All of these. But then he begins getting a little more personal as he goes on. And he says, ye are the light of the world. Ye are the light of the world.
I don't often feel like much of a light of the world.
Yeah, but he's talking about not only for just the neighborhood, but for the world. Say, how does that really happen? Well, he continues on. And he says, in verse 20, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. And these guys were the guys who prayed on the street corners. Right. These are the guys who are giving alms all over.
They were the ones who had it all together.
Supposedly
they were in with God. They were at God's right-hand side. They were doing everything correctly.
Or so it seemed.
But that's what they told everyone too.
That's exactly. And they wore all the beautiful robes. So they looked the part. They acted the part. But God says, wait a second. They're not my guys. They're not doing what I want. And I can hardly imagine.
Don't you think that most of the people in that crowd had to be wondering, well, what hope is there for me if I have to be better than the Pharisees?
I think you're exactly right. Because they looked at these men as their total example that they could never achieve to. And God's saying, hey, except your righteousness exceeds theirs, you're never getting to heaven. So kind of they're down at the bottom now. They've dropped down and down and down and down. But then he says, I say unto you, whoever is angry with a brother. Angry with a brother? Really? Because, the Pharisees, the scribes and Pharisees had all these rules that you could do certain things and get away with it. Right? It's okay to be religious, but you can shaft your brother if it's in certain situations. But no, Jesus said, no. And then he gets even deeper. And about down at verse 28, he says, but I say unto you that whoever looks upon a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart.
And so half the men at least at that point were going, oh shoot.
Yeah, immediately, you don't have to go out and commit any act, because why? You've already done the act in your mind. And you've probably watched some of the World Cup skiers or some of these guys. What do they do before they come out of the gate? They sit there, they close their eyes, and you can see them visualize, boom, boom,
Right.
boom, 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 going all the way down the mountain, every turn, every nuance, how close they get to the gates, all of this. They're practicing in their minds, because we're told scientifically.
Already picturing themselves doing it perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. We're told in our minds that kind of practice adds up to neuromuscular response, adds up to the correct practice. So Jesus said, hey, you look at a woman to lust after, you've already blown it.
I think most people then and now have the idea that sin is out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't done this or this or this, and they don't stop to consider that if they've thought about it, dwelt on it. We all have random thoughts where we're going, where did that thought even come from? And it's like gone. You don't dwell on it and consider, oh, wouldn't it be nice to do, especially perhaps getting revenge on someone. That's the anger in your heart is what kind of scenarios do you think of with that person that are kind of making you smile because you figure they deserve that? Well, you're guilty of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, he gets it isn't enough. He continues on here in the chapter, and he says in verse 48, be ye therefore perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect.
But that crowd had already decided there was no way they could ever be perfect.
Yeah. But now I've heard today, theologians, they'll all argue on what perfection is. Oh, Jesus didn't mean that. Surely he didn't mean that, because nobody can be perfect. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here soon, but Jesus said it, so it must have been true, right?
I understand the logic,
yeah.
But I also understand that if I'd been in that crowd, I think I would have been going, there's no chance.
Oh, I'm sure they were. I'm sure they were.
But
that's why he also continued on with the story, for several more chapters. And he says, listen to this. In a prayer, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Well, who's doing the delivering?
God.
God is. We're praying to God. God, you deliver me, because I'm angry with my brother. I want to lust after the woman. I can't be perfect. But Jesus provides the way. Ask God for that help. Ask God to come in and do that, and then it can happen. It's a whole new mindset.
Even if it seems impossible.
Yeah. Even if it seems impossible, it's a whole new mindset. And today, I'd submit to you that we've all got that same crazy mindset as they did on that hill that day, overlooking the Sea of Galilee.
Well, I just told you I'd be guilty of that.
Yeah.
Still am. I shouldn't put it in the past tense.
Yeah, and then he talks about verse 19, lay not up for yourselves treasures on the earth. Okay, where then? But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Well, what kind of treasures?
People like their stuff.
Yeah, people like their stuff.
They like a healthy bank account.
And every one of us on this planet, maybe there's somebody, Mother Teresa maybe when she was alive, but everybody works for stuff. Somehow stuff gets in the way of that relationship and that friendship that God is aiming toward here. Then he goes on, he says, the light of the body is the eye. So it's the smoke. Boy, in my eye. Yeah, that burned. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore the eye be single, the whole body shall be full of light. So wherever your focus is, that's what's going to happen in the life inside. Because he says, if the eye be evil, the whole body is filled with darkness. So wherever I turn, wherever I look, that's what's going to fill the life. That's what's going to...
You will go the way you're looking.
Yeah.
So again, it's the thoughts. It's what's happening in your head, not just what's out here.
Yeah. You know, that it's good what you said, because I think about, for years I was a Harley rider. And on a motorcycle, you go where you look. It's simply that way. You're looking at something, the bike turns that way.
Even if you don't mean for it to
Even
go,
if you
you'll
don't mean
veer
it.
off.
But if you're looking that way, that's where you're going. It's just a simple thing when you train, when you're, you know, first doing it, you learn that. Now, he goes on to chapter 7. He said, verse 13, enter ye in at the straight gate. Now, boy, it's not like we had enough already, but enter in at the straight gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many are going to find that way. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leads into life, but few are going to find it.
What's the best present you've ever gotten? A new puppy? A new car? For me, nothing comes close to the gift of the Sabbath, a weekly reminder that we can rest in the absolute assurance of God's love and salvation. Tucked into the heart of the Ten Commandments is the best gift you've ever been offered. If you'd like to find out more about this gift, order this free booklet called A Love Gift from Jesus. To order your free copy, go to talkingdonkeyinternational.org and request offer number 141. You know the impact of Christ's message. It heals, it transforms. Do you have the eye for a great post, the heart for a kind comment, the skill to build community?
Talking Donkey International is looking for passionate volunteers, from seasoned content creators to newcomers.
We are a Christian community dedicated to sharing Christ's love.
This is a real opportunity to turn your time into ministry. Scan the QR code
to make a lasting impact. Jim, you just recently finished a new book, The Plan of Love. I just read it, and I actually loved it. I read it all in one sitting, over the course of the same day anyway. Where can people get it?
They can actually go to talkingdonkeyinternational.org. And actually, if you give a gift to the ministry of $12 or more, we'll send you the book completely free. talkingdonkeyinternational.org. Actually, if you give a gift to the ministry of $12 or more, we'll send you the book completely free, and I'll autograph it for you also.
So many people, though, today, Christians, have this idea that, well, I suppose it boils down to God is too nice to keep anyone out. You know, that no matter what path you're on, it all leads to the right spot.
Isn't that what the devil said clear back in the garden? Surely God will
He
not
didn't
do
mean
it.
that.
He didn't mean that. You know, no, he's too good a God for that.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Verse 18, a good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit. Neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. We always say we can't judge people, but we can be fruit inspectors. We can look at that person, we can see what kind of fruit they're bearing and delivering. And if they're delivering the wrong kind of fruit, you don't want to be necessarily near that tree, you know, because that will infect you. That disease of that tree will affect your life also.
In fact, I was reading a whole article on the fact that if you think of the 5 people that you're the closest to, you will become like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So you need to be really careful what kind of trees you're hanging out with.
I mean, it's simple. You've been married a long time.
Yeah.
I've been married a long time. The two of you start becoming more alike. You know, you can answer each other's sentences.
I tell puns now.
I
It's
love it.
horrible.
Your husband will always tell her the puns on our trips, you know. It's true though. You know, you hang around with somebody, you become more like them.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone, verse 21, it really gets serious here. Not everyone that says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven.
That verse has always frightened me. Because I wonder, how do you know if you're in that group?
Well,
You
but
think you're calling
yeah.
on God. You think you know Him.
But it says, but he that does the will of my Father. All of a sudden, here's a gauge, the one who does the will of my Father. Many say to me in that day, but Lord, Lord, we've cast out demons in your name. We've healed the sick. We've done all these things in your name. Now, how's Jesus respond? Because this is a church member. You know,
Yeah,
this is
the
the
good
one
people.
The good people, like the Pharisees. done all these things in your name. God stood on the street corner, prayed to you, wore all the robes. I told everybody about you. But the Lord says this, and then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Go and depart from me. That word know in the Greek is basically like Adam knew his wife. It was a very personal, intimate friendship and relationship. Not the way we tend to think of it. It's God wants to have a real friendship, a real relationship with us. And he says, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hear my voice, I open the door and I will come into him. That's what God is looking for here, is that friendship and a relationship. To totally change all this other stuff. We say, I can't do it, Lord. And God says, good, now you're understanding, the gospel. Now you're understanding where I'm coming from, because you can't do it, but I can. And I want that friendship. Whole different scenario. Now, chapter 8, he's done Sermon on the Mount. I mean, there's a few more verses, because the last verse of that chapter 7 says the people were astonished at his doctrine. They had never heard anything like this before.
Well, it was the opposite of what the Pharisees were telling them.
Yeah.
They were saying, be like me.
The God of heaven came down and met with them and talked with them and said, look, you've had all these people giving you all these rules and regulations. You've tried to work your way to heaven, but here's the reality of the situation. Here's what I want to do for you. And they were just amazed. Never heard it before. So now it's pretty exciting, but the devil is absolutely mad. He's fried. So in chapters 8 and 9, as he's going down the mountain and traveling a little distance, he throws everything at him but the kitchen sink. And maybe he'd thrown that too, The first thing that shows up is a leper. And what does Jesus do? He reaches out and he touches him. Heal.
And you weren't supposed to touch lepers.
Oh, not at all.
He went against convention right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the scenario is, it was God's touch. That's what God wants to do in us, touch us. The centurion, he says, look, Lord, I've got a servant that's sick. Long distance healing. Long distance healing. God doesn't even need to show up in person, long distance healing. The wife or the mother of Peter, he goes to her too, touches her, what? Immediately healed. Just the touch. Demon possession, no problem. There's so many places in the Bible that the devil has possessed people and the lives of people, and God says, hey, they're inviting me, you have no part here, get away. And the devil has to leave. It continues all the way on. You get chapter 9, sick of the palsy, no problem. The daughter who died of the ruler, yeah, no problem, I can take care of that too. We continue on here. We finally get to the woman. You remember the woman that had the issue of blood for 12 years. She'd spent all her money, all of her funds, everything else, and she is desperate. She was
desperate enough. She shouldn't have been in that crowd of people.
Oh yeah, not at all.
Because obviously her being there was causing some people to accidentally touch her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But she gets to the hem of the garment of Jesus and she touches Jesus. And immediately Jesus stops in a huge crowd, thousands of people maybe, and it says, who touched me?
And his disciples even said, what do you mean, who touched you?
Yeah, are you looking at the crowd, Lord?
They're all touching you.
What's the matter with you? Have you been up heat stroke from being on top of the mountain all day? No, someone touched me. And he stops and he looks, and here's the woman. She's starting to crawl away, sneak away. And the most amazing thing in verse 22 of chapter 9 says, daughter. That was such an endearing term. Nobody had ever said such a thing. And this woman thought for 12 years, she was hated. She was cast out of the temple. She couldn't go. She couldn't worship God, anything. And Jesus, the King of the universe, says, daughter. It's so incredible. He took that extra time. He could have gone on. He still had to go heal somebody. He knew that, but nope, he stopped. 12-year-old girl, gonna go heal her, but I've got to stop for this woman who had 12-year issue of blood. Gonna heal her first and talk with her, heal her heart, because that's what she really needed, is that healing of the heart. We serve such an amazing God. 2 blind men, no problem. Touch them. Again, the touch of Jesus. Then we get to chapter 10. In chapter 10, everybody's pretty much gone now. He's got the disciples alone. He says, hey, come here. And he says, I'm going to give you power. Really? Yes, I'm going to give you power. And with Jesus, there was mainly two types of power in the New Testament. The dunamis power, the dynamite power of God, and the exousia, the authority of God as the creator of the universe. So it carried both types of authority, both kinds of power. And he says, I'm giving it to you. And he says, I want you to go out, I want you to preach, I want you to heal the sick, cleanse the leper, raise the dead, do all these things that you've seen me do. Really, Lord? Yes, you go now. They went out and they came back. Lord, you know, everything you said, we can do. Everything you said, we can do. And he gets all the way down, verses 26, 28, and verse 31. Fear not. Fear not, fear not, fear not, 3 times. Because I know you
talking to me.
I know you never fear. Yeah, I was going to say, I know you never fear.
I'm a direct descendant of Chicken Little. Sky might not be falling right now, but it's probably
going to, yeah. Right? Yeah, it's going to. Later on, he gave that same power to the 70, and they came back with the same report. This power of God is unbelievable. Everything God said we can do, we can do. Well, what did God ask these people to do all the way through those earlier chapters? Your righteousness has got to exceed the righteous scribes. Your perfection needs to be like the perfection of God himself. How do you do that? Well, through my power. And, well, Lord, I've called on you before, but not like I want you to call on me. I want you to call on me and invite you into my heart. And when I come into your heart, I'm going to cast out the demons. I'm going to cast out the evil. I'm going to raise the dead. I'm going to heal the sick through you. I'm going to do all these things through you. And that's the key for every one of us, is that's what God has in store for you and for me. And it's so difficult sometimes to grab a hold of it, to really think about that. I don't know if I'm sure you've thought of it. I know you have. We've talked about it before.
Maybe not in those exact words. Putting it together with the whole Sermon on the Mount and everything that happened afterwards. But I know that I can understand the people in the crowd, because he was talking to people like me.
We're talking all, not
who
just
tend
you,
to
Janice.
fear and who tend to know that they are far
Yeah.
from perfect and probably can't ever be perfect, but then showing them that it's through him.
The children of Israel, when they were there, they sent spies into the land. God says, I've given you this land. They came back and said, but Lord,
We can't do it.
we can't, there's giants in the land.
Yeah. And they let fear cloud their
They had
their
an eye
decision
problem,
making.
right? Where were they looking? They're looking at themselves. I'm looking at you, you're not a giant. I'm looking at your husband, he's not a giant. And me, well, we can't do it. And they were exactly right. They couldn't do it. But the creator God of the universe, who in Isaiah said, he sits on the circle of the earth, and the whole earth is like grasshoppers to him. I would submit, if you're sitting on the shoulders of God, you can do anything. And that's what God wants.
It's that view from 30,000 feet.
It's that view, yeah. It's that view.
Where you look at it and go, yeah, we can take that land. We, God and us.
Exactly, exactly.
What's the best present you've ever gotten? A new puppy? A new car? For me, nothing comes close to the gift of the Sabbath, a weekly reminder that we can rest in the absolute assurance of God's love and salvation. Tucked into the heart of the 10 Commandments is the best gift you've ever been offered. If you'd like to find out more about this gift, order this free booklet called A Love Gift from Jesus. To order your free copy, go to talkingdonkeyinternational.org and request offer number 141.
Hey, Janice, how are you doing?
Hey, you wrote another book.
I did. Had a burden on my heart, and God helped me get it done.
So, The Plan of Love, what's it about?
Well, it's really about God in eternity. Saw everything that was going to happen here, and his amazing love. He says, I'm going to take care of the problems. I'm going to take care of the situation by giving my own life. He did all that, but we've been lied to so much, we don't see what God has plan for us, what God is doing for us. Matter of fact, the angel came down to Mary and said, you shall call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Notice it wasn't in, but from.
Where can people get the book?
Hey, I'm glad you asked. Folks, if you'd like your own personal copy, log on to talkingdonkeyinternational.org. And please, if you would, send us a donation of $12
Or more.
or more, and we'll get you the book, and I'll be happy to sign it for you too. Thank you so much.
You know the impact of Christ's message. It heals, it transforms. Do you have the eye for a great post, the heart for a kind comment, the skill to build community?
Talking Donkey International is looking for passionate volunteers, from seasoned content creators to newcomers.
We are a Christian community dedicated to sharing Christ's love.
This is a real opportunity to turn your time into ministry. Scan the QR code.
To make a lasting impact.
Janice, isn't that awesome?
Oh, I have never been up here seeing it from this angle.
Yeah. Well, and I'm kind of wondering if our viewers have ever seen what we did in the 6 chapters here of Matthew, if they've ever seen that angle. Folks, it's absolutely incredible what God wants to tell us, what God wants to share with us in His Word. And I wonder, is there anything you'd like to talk with people about as we close out today?
I too often am focused on the details, one little part like being perfect, and I realize, oh, I'm so far from that, and I get discouraged because I don't see the whole picture, the overview.
Yeah. What is that overview? Remember, it's about God. It's about His beauty, His charm, His sacrifice, and His power to live in us that we might become perfect. Many people would, the devil would like to say, no, you can't be perfect. But God says, be ye therefore perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. It can happen as we invite God into our lives. No matter what is going on in your life, the same as Jesus came off that mountain and healed everybody by a touch. He wants to touch us, doesn't He?
Yes, and be part of our lives, be in us, be the driving force behind our thoughts. So when I get those negative thoughts, when I'm beating myself up because I can only see how far I am from the goal, if you just had God's view, it wouldn't look that far.
Exactly. So, friends, I beg of you, get God's view. Check it out. Study these chapters. Pray about these chapters. Look at everything from Matthew 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Don't forget chapter 10. That's the power chapter where God gives His power. Wants to give it to you and to me. So today, please, I know Janice and I both, choose that power. Invite God into your life and He will change it, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. Do it today. You'll be happy you did. Thank you for watching. Join us again for another exciting Country Wisdom.
See you next time.